Hi, and welcome to How We're Supposed to Know That. This is a podcast designed for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. It's a space for us to tell our stories, talk about what it's really like to grow a business, and share the highs, the lows, and the lessons learned along the way. My name is Bernard Williams. I am, in addition to the podcast host, I'm a small business attorney and fractional general counsel with a law firm called Company Counsel. And what we do is we work with small companies that are in growth mode, want to exit one day and exit successfully, and have a lot of legal issues along the way that they need someone to handle. And that's where we come in. Really excited to have one of my good friends and colleagues with me here today in the studio. Please join me in welcoming Tina Hamilton, the CEO of my HR partner, Inc. Tina?
Thanks, Bernard. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this. So for the handful of people who've not heard of your company, because I'm sure there's somebody out there that hasn't heard of your company yet, why don't you share a little bit about what you do and how you help your clients?
Sure. So my company is myHR partner. We are an HR outsourcing company. And what that means, because oftentimes people either aren't sure everything that's under the HR umbrella or what outsourcing HR looks like. So the brief summary of that is we handle some or all of the human resources for organizations. And typically those organizations are either small but well-established, more affluent, and or mid-sized. And so what HR means, outsourcing means, is handling everything that has to do with dealing with your employees, from helping you attract employees, helping you hire employees, helping you retain employees. But most importantly, the majority of our work is under just managing the day-to-day-ness of employees, everything from administrative aspects like payroll, benefits administration, along with your vendors, your chosen vendors, just like an in-house HR would do, as well as compliance, employee relations, dealing with all the daily employee, headaches or problems or even great things, wellness, employee happiness, performance management, just all of it that's under that HR umbrella. And that's what we do for companies right now. I just found out we're in 47 states. So we're now on a campaign to find those last 3 states and solidify our 50 states. Yeah.
That's awesome. So 2 reactions instantly come to mind. The first is congratulations, that it's amazing that you have a presence in 47 states.
Thank you.
The second reaction is that I think it's kind of interesting that you just found out that you had that presence in 47 states because you're the CEO, right? So how did the CEO come to find that your market had expanded beyond what you do?
Yeah, because the clients that we have, sometimes we're accepting a proposal or what have you, bringing them on from a particular state, but then they either open up in a second or third or fourth state, something like that. So it's usually that. It's not that we landed an account in every single state. It's just that they've expanded or they've already had multiple locations. And each of those locations are important for me to mention because every state has its own, as you probably know, as somebody that handles employment law and your day-to-day practice, it's not just federal laws, it's state laws and then local laws. You can have 2 different cities in the same state with different laws. So mentioning those states isn't an ego inflated, inflation tactic. It's what we have to understand in those different states. It's a lot.
You're absolutely right. I had these conversations with clients all the time. I mean, as you know, my office is located in Greater Philadelphia, but which actual municipality makes a big difference. I mean, if you're in Montgomery County, that's one thing. Philadelphia is different. New Jersey is totally different. Delaware is totally different. And those are all 20 minutes of a drive between those destinations.
Honestly, sometimes I don't know how they do it because it changes so often. And now with employees working remotely, you have to think about where they're located also, and the rules around that. So it's complex.
Right. So, when I started my business, I was under the belief that every small company needed legal services. And I was going to provide a way for even the smallest of companies to have access to the services because they needed it. And I soon found out that not every company wanted legal services or believed they were ready or had the perception that an attorney could help. whatever was different. So I guess what I'm wondering is, from the HR perspective, is there a certain point in the growth of a company where they can't deny that they need to outsource HR, or is there some sort of a triggering moment that makes them realize that it's no longer a DIY type of project, that it's something where they need to go out and get expert help?
Well, I'll tell you, and this is not for any political reason. However, when Obama came into office back in whatever year that was, I can't even remember it off the top of my head, but when he came into office, he started making changes. And in the world of HR, there were some changes, still are. There's still like federal laws and state laws that are 50 plus years old. I mean, we're talking about human resources here. Things change. And so he started making changes. And then from there, everybody, every administration had to make changes. So the compliance thing started becoming more important. When COVID happened and people went remote, and they had definitely had no idea how to run a business and the liabilities of somebody working remote, because there are liabilities, including workers' compensation in somebody's own home, that you have to worry about or think about. You have to worry about it, but you have to be mindful of it. That's when really, like, we start seeing more and more calls from people that maybe wouldn't have called us because of their size or their growth stage or whatever.
Right.
And now we get a lot of calls, and it's getting even more complex because it's around IT security. We don't do IT security, but there's so many security requirements that have to do with employees specifically because of security, getting hacked and things like that, but also AI. Because with the surge of AI, it's exposing, employee information, employees likeness, voices. It's a lot. So that's also creating a surge in people realizing they can't do this alone.
That's interesting. So the surge or the prevalence of AI,
yes,
and some of those other things that you just mentioned are leading them to, and the data security, I think you mentioned, or leading them to contact an HR company?
And yes, and it's not even just that. There's crazy things happening because of AI that people don't know what to even do. So, like, it's not all compliance is, of course, a piece of what we do, but it's not the biggest piece. The bigger piece of what most HR companies do is deal with the day-to-day employee happiness, they call it employee relations. But what is employee relations? It's communicating with the employee to help them be successful in their company. So if you have problems with them, communication issues, attendance issues, the millions of issues that could be out there. Or you want to make sure you're creating employee happiness and security and wellness so that they stay. Retention's a big part. But where I was headed is there's crazy stuff happening. So for example, a great story I can share with you that we recently wrote a blog on, and it got so much attention that I put it into I have a news column that I write, 2 different ones. And I actually put it in there because I got so much attention. And that was, so we do outsourced hiring. We're not a staffing service, but we do the work of hiring, and we're paid to do the work. So one of our employees is doing this work for one of our clients. She's running ads, screening, interviewing, and then she gets to the point of reference checks because the company wanted to make an offer. So she's calling the reference checks, and the answers just felt too perfected. The voice just sounded too perfect, everything. It didn't feel right, and she started suspecting that it was AI.
Wow.
Well, all this person's, I don't know how, they went to a lot of trouble because, we have to schedule the call. We don't just call people. We schedule a call to make sure, because we're usually talking to executives or HR something. They're busy people, right? So we're scheduling the call to do this reference. And there's a phone number usually involved, the email, like it's a lot of things. And then having the call on an actual call, like on a phone, or on a computer screen. So all of that. So we discovered that all of them are AI. We created AI agents to act as companies. And then when that happened, they started investigating more, found his LinkedIn, and his entire LinkedIn was a scam. Like, he had other LinkedIn profiles that somehow they were able to find. These guys are amazing. And so that's a thing now that people have to think about, like, just authenticity, period. References, interviews. If a lot of people are doing video interviews now, it's cheaper, it's easier, it's faster. All those things, even just doing an interview and answering questions, you can have an AI screen on right next to you telling you what to answer, and it could sound perfect. And I could be reading something right now, talking to you and making myself sound great, right? And then come to work for you and not know what the heck I'm supposed to even do. Right. So there's a lot of things now that people need guidance. So it's not even always just like law related, it's guidance, it's like experience sharing, of what other companies are doing, that kind of thing. It's hard to be a business owner in today's world with just everything that's going on. It's so hard, and you're alone. So it gives you somebody to help you.
That story you told about the candidate with the fake LinkedIn profile and the AI agent on the phone. I mean, the amount of work that must have gone into setting all that up. I mean, it would have been easier just to get a degree and gain work experience and get hired the right way.
It's just the way the world is today. People are putting all this energy into learning how to hack your computers and do all these things and find ways to get around things, but I don't know how you would last in a job. But I have heard, now we have not experienced this yet, but I have heard about people accepting 2 or 3 jobs and using remote jobs, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but remote jobs, and using AI to actually perform the work. So they're getting the work done, but it's AI, and they're able to collect multiple paychecks because of that.
I saw a statistic somewhere, and I don't remember the actual number, but the idea was that when it comes to litigation that companies go through, and court procedures, disputes, that kind of thing, that it's employment related or HR related disputes that are by far the most expensive, more than B2B disputes, collections, antitrust, IP violations, all that. It's usually something in the HR employment realm. Yeah. You and the people on your team likely are the first contact when something comes up in the workplace. It might ultimately wind up in court. How do you know when to tell your clients, like, hey, this is time to bring in an attorney. Here's how we can help. So counsel is really needed.
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's a great question just for people in general. If they're doing research online or whatever, obviously the first thing is to remember, and we keep reminding people, AI doesn't, just because it's an AI, it doesn't mean it's right. Even though you logically know that, it's really easy to fall under the spell of thinking AI is right for everything and that you're just going to get all your answers. These are laws. Like, AI isn't connected to some law library that keeps everything perfect. And even so, if a client's using you, Bernard, you wouldn't just send them the print of the law and say, here you go, there's your answer. There's a lot of, explaining and processes that you would need to, implement into their unique environment too, which affects so many things, as you know. But to answer your question, it's a great question, because, one of the things that we do is, number one, we will only hire HR people that have a formal degree in HR, not a formal degree and no HR, but a formal degree in HR, or there's a formal degree in an HR. There's a certification through SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers. So these are knowledgeable and skilled people, but they also know, they have to know, and that's why we hire this level, because we have liability too. They have to know where the line is drawn, and typically it's where either it's not black and white, which in a lot of employment law is not black and white. Probably more that's not black and white than is black and white, I think, and circumstantial. And then you got the states, and you start involving states and locations and different laws around that. It could get complex. So it's that. And certainly, if anything has a potential to go into litigation at all, even if it's not likely it would happen, that, or if we're writing, even when we write handbooks or job descriptions, et cetera, we actually have, and we verbally say it, but we have it in our agreements that they should, that we're not a legal counsel. And yes, we know how to write handbooks. We know how to do it. But if you really want to solidify that handbook, you should have an attorney. Either they have an attorney and we'll use their attorney, or if not, we'll recommend, somebody. But yeah, that's typically, they know, and it's from their experience, because they are skilled. So if it's a client, I would imagine that you would say to your clients, if you're uncertain in any way and it's not an obvious answer that you can find pretty quickly somewhere, it's better always, even if, times are tough financially, it's a lot less costly to use legal counsel than to make a mistake. It's really easy to take litigation these days, and especially with things, again, more being online and things like, it's just, and AI can also work, while it can help you, it can also, while we're on that subject, it can also hurt, because people can look up what are, wow, this just happened at my employer. What does that mean? And they can find out if they can go into court and what it's going to take and what the rewards could be and the value of it and if it's worthwhile. So it's a lot easier now for people to find out that, where before you would have to call a lawyer, talk it through, right? Figure it all out. So.
Yeah, all very good points. Now, I want to make sure you have such an illustrious career. I mean, you just mentioned that you're an author in 2 different periodicals, which in and of itself is impressive. One of them is Inc. Magazine, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah. I write. Typically, right now it's quarterly, just more really for me. Yeah, and it's actually through the entrepreneur organization that we are both involved in. Which is eonetwork.org. And they have an opportunity for people to write for Inc. And they accepted me a few years ago to be one of those. And so, yes, so I write for them. And I also write for where I live part-time in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and our newspaper for our area, the Morning Call, I write a monthly column in the front of their business section on Sundays.
Terrific. So I mean, people are looking at you and where you are now, and I'm sure they'd love to hear the backstory. How did you get there? Bring us back to the origins and how you founded myHR partner.
I'll give you a brief, so because obviously every story is long. I mean, when you get to my age, every story is longer. But it was really an unexpected thing. I think I always was an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. He had different small businesses, and I later found out my mother's father was an entrepreneur and had a bunch of little small businesses. So maybe there's a DNA thing here. Who knows? I believe it a little bit, because I think you have to be of a certain mindset. But I grew up in Philadelphia, and I didn't have an easy childhood. I moved out of my home when I was just before I turned 16 years old, and had to find my way. And at one point in my career, I heard that if you went to a staffing service, you could get a job and find a career. And I had been working in like retail, just getting by, but in management roles. I was actually moving up. I guess I had the leadership skills. And so I went to a staffing service, and every staffing service I applied to asked me if I would work directly for them, placing people in jobs. They felt that I would be good in that. And so finally I took the offer up on one and started working for one, and was successful and grew in my career over a few years. And about 4 years in, it's a long story, but it had to do with a move. I had an opportunity to run my own staffing service for an independent owner who owned a whole bunch of businesses. And one day I just went to him and said, you're not really engaged in this business, and I think I could do a lot with it. How about if I just buy it off of you? And you have all your other businesses. And how about if you fund me, by the way? And he liked me, so we agreed. We made an agreement, and I purchased the business from him. And that was my first company. And it was a franchise of a staffing service. And so I did that. Franchise is a great way to start in business because somebody else already has the ideas and they're constantly keeping up with all the changes of all the millions of things you have to learn. So that was my first business. And then they had a merger. And the short story is they had a merger and I either had to sell back or buy my competition. I was not interested in my competitor at all. So I sold back and I was like 33 years old with a sole business and a 5-year-old daughter and no clue whatsoever what I was going to do with next. But I came up with the idea. I was spending a lot of time thinking about what I could do next. And I was going everywhere from all kinds of businesses to becoming Elmo at Sesame Place, so I could just be with kids hugging me all day long. It was literally on my mind because I was so burned out from business. And but I came up with an idea. We were on a vacation, and I woke up in the middle of the night with the idea of the concept of my business, and it was a little different than what it is now. But here I am, 24 years later, and as I mentioned, we're in 47 states now. I have, we'll probably end the year close to about 50 employees. And we're very much in a state of growth right now and planned growth. And we're expanding out and seeing what we can do.
I love the idea for your company came while you're on a clarity break, while you're on vacation.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. So what was the original premise? You said that the concept has changed a little bit over the years.
Yeah. So so I wake up in the middle of the night and I think because I was thinking so much, about it, that once I relaxed, it all clicked together. And the thing I knew most is I loved working with entrepreneurs. I just loved it. And in the staffing business, it wasn't always all entrepreneurs. It was all kinds of corporations. But I love that. And I decided whatever I did next, I wanted to be something I loved and was passionate about. And I also knew that a lot of them would call the staffing business because they needed to hire people fast. But what they really needed was someone that understood them, that really got to know them as if they were part of that company, like really totally engaged, so that when they did the hiring, they could do it with that in mind and with all that knowledge and all that understanding of the culture. And that is what I knew was missing from the staffing world. It doesn't exist. And they can promote it that way, but it doesn't exist because they don't have the capacity to spend the time and the resources to do what that takes. And I decided if I could create a process in which we could really become engaged and it's a deep process to get to that point, but to do that and then be able to do their hiring for some or all of their positions, I could help them be more successful. And that was the point. So believe it or not, 24 years ago, there was really nobody doing anything like that. Not really. Like maybe there were consultants, but there wasn't like an organization or a company. So that was it. And the brief story after that is, although it was much longer than it's going to sound, is I started seeing that the companies that we were helping hire for, we knew we were doing a great job. We knew we were successful, but they were still having turnover. So I started looking deeper, saying, what's going on? And I realized, once they're in there, I have no control. We could hire the greatest person in the world, but if I put you start them and you're not giving them good direction or training them right or giving them a basic job descriptions, handbooks, things like that, you're not setting them up for success. But these are things that people don't know. They start businesses and they're focused on how to run that business, how to work, how to make it profitable. They're not thinking about that level of detail. It's not a natural thing that people think about if they haven't been in business before or been trained to think that way. So we come in and do that for them. And it was so we started adding little by little. And every time we added something, clients asked for something more. It's the truth. And eventually people started asking for full-on HR, one and then another. And eventually I took about 18 months, created the program. And now hiring is like a line item now under the umbrella of HR outsourcing.
When last we met, we were talking about your growth and the original idea that you had when you were on vacation, and just the fact that nobody at that time was really focused on what happens once the hire was made,
Right.
and on creating the right kind of culture and the right kind of support system, and even having, like you said, job descriptions that were accurate and they were followed. And you saw that as an opportunity and took it from there. I think that's great. Now, how did it go from a company that was serving its clients well and solving that problem to one that expanded to 47 different states? Like, could you talk a little bit about what that expansion looked like?
I could tell you, it wasn't because of our marketing and sales, because in the early days, we couldn't afford that much. I mean, when you're small and you're coming up, I needed to hire skilled, qualified people. These are not inexpensive people if you want to, find the good ones and attract and retain them, and also give them the things that they need to be successful. And we really walk the walk, so that was a big part of my business. Really, there's really no other way to say it other than we were doing amazing work. That for many years, the biggest part of our growth was referrals or companies that we started with on a smaller scale. And then, once they saw what we could do, or as they were growing, they started adding more and more, services, or just hiring more people, which, expanded our agreements. So a lot of that. And then eventually figuring out the right combination for marketing to, bring more leads in, through Google. And that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of time. And sometimes a few people or a few marketing agencies or whatever, we've been through them, but now if unless the economy, something crazy happens in the economy in a common year, we just get enough leads really that we grow significantly every year. Like, we really have great marketing and great referrals. So I know that sounds really basic. I want to give you something amazing and magical, but I don't have anything amazing and magical, because for years get there. But it is a combination of finding the right person doing your marketing and not settling for something, and getting a little wise to understanding marketing, so that what you're overseeing, and you're not just accepting everything they say. That's really important, because and the reason I even bring that up is because marketing is such an expense, and done wrong, it's money out the window. So, and it's a hard expense for people to think about, because it doesn't always guarantee you a return.
Right. Yeah. Along those lines, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's a hiring decision that you regret, whatever the case. All of us as entrepreneurs make decisions that we maybe wish we hadn't, or at least that we learned from. Are you willing to share any stories that you have about maybe a lesson learned or a challenge that you went through, or maybe you wish you'd handled something a little bit different?
Yeah. And, I just want to say, people will come to me and look at our website and see, oh, we've been on the Inc. 5000 5 times. We've grown to this, and you don't get there without having to go through a lot of mistakes and a lot of problems, and still now having down times. It's not like, oh, once you get here, everything just stays rosy. It doesn't work that way. We've been through lots of bad times, but the worst was 2007, because 2007, well, it also was the best, because it taught me the most amount of lessons that have carried me through hard times now. And that was when the market crashed. Well, for most people, they saw it in 2008, maybe even into 2009. For us, we were at the front lines, because one thing I learned about this business is that when the hiring part of our business, where we're doing outsourced hiring, when that starts slowing down, it is always a leading indicator of the economy and economic, something's going to happen. Some kind of slump is coming every single time. And I am not anybody that is an expert in economics, but I can tell you that for sure. So we were working on that, starting up that HR service I had mentioned, after we decided we're going to create a whole HR outsourcing process. It took me 18 months to develop that. And so during those 18 months, I was hiring some HR people, creating all the processes, et cetera. And we had clients literally waiting for us to get going, and so they could sign up. And just when we hired the people and were ready to go was when it hit. And when it hit hard, because about 85% of our business was still hiring. It was only a very small part that was HR. And guess what ended? All hiring. It was like overnight. Any jobs we were working on, of course, those, were completed, but we weren't getting anything new. And it wasn't like we were in business already for a while, for about 7 years, something. So, we knew, expected amount of business normally comes, and it just stopped. And it's a long story, but, we had to sit down together, figure out what we're going to do. And it wasn't fun because we had, now I had just hired new HR people, as I mentioned, and now all the clients that were waiting are like, oh, we're holding off. We got to see what's going on. And literally everyone, I'm not kidding. And we had to pivot. I hate to use that word. It's so overused, but that is what we had to do. We had to pivot. And so we had to cut back. We had to downsize, move into a smaller space and ride it out. Luckily, the outcome of all the cutbacks and all the changes within organizations, a lot of them cut out HR and still needed HR, or suddenly needed HR because they were resurging. And so the HR offering is what saved our lives. There was no hiring. There was nothing. And as a matter of fact, for the next couple of years, we barely did any hiring. It was all HR. Thank God, thank goodness we created this program and people needed it right then and there. And we were in the right place at the right time, but we carried a lot of debt for a lot of years. And that really stood in our way of progress because we couldn't afford to do certain things until we got it down. Biggest lessons, because now I run my business completely debt free and always will until I'm not here anymore. But we've been able to grow significantly doing it that way. And we learned how. So like last year, when we had a bad economic year again, we got hit last year, we were completely prepared. It was still tough, but we didn't accumulate any debt. And, we were positioned for it. Such an important thing to become positioned for the downturns, because I don't care how good you are, there will be a downturn. What goes up must come down. So
yeah, you said that there will be a downturn, and I agree. I heard someone say recently that once every 5 years or so, something happens either in the economy or globally that completely turns your business on its end, and either you innovate or you don't, and there are consequences for that.
Yeah.
And I had to think about it, and I look back, and they were absolutely right. I mean, whether it's COVID or AI, or just going back every 5 years, it seems like something causes a reset.
Sometimes, or 9/11. 9/11 caused a lot of issues. As a matter of fact, my first business, I sold it in July of that year, and when 9/11 happened, that industry crashed because it was just like 2007. First thing that happens is everybody stops hiring. If I would have purchased that competitor at that time, I probably would have went bankrupt. I don't know. Like, what do you do when all your work is one thing and it's no longer, nobody's buying it, right? A lot of people experienced that during COVID. Luckily, I didn't have to experience that.
So do you find that when HR is busy, hiring is down, and when hiring is busy, HR is down?
No, I think hiring is just on its own world. But, HR in general, HR is there for people that really care about their employees and also care deeply about, not like protecting themselves and, doing the right things, but also get the work off of them. It's a lot of work to do HR, just that. Sometimes people call us just for that reason. The only trend that I can tell you, hiring, there's trends because of seasonality or whatever. HR, not so much. However, there's pieces of HR that get accelerated. So if anybody remembers, I think it was either the end of 2020 or 21. I can't remember exactly because that was a fun year. There was a very big, I think it was like second round of the Black Lives Matter movement. There there was a shooting, and I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there was a shooting at that time, and people were in COVID world and I think it just accelerated it, and people just had enough of what was happening. When that happened, and suddenly it became vogue, to have DEI programs, and we have to have it. All of a sudden, something I've been pushing for years that really nobody was that interested in, or they were really too small to even have to worry about it or think about it, whatever. All of a sudden, everybody wanted it and wanted it now and needed it now. And so luckily, we had somebody that was going for her, it was a master's, I think, in DEI, and was able to create an amazing program. She was going to Ivy League school, so she had an amazing program. And we were submitting, and people wanted programs, and all of a sudden, guess what happened? 2 years later, nothing. We couldn't sell it. It's unfortunate that we could have a whole podcast on that, Bernard. But
maybe we should.
There is. It's like anything else in life. There's trends of what people follow, and businesses, a lot of them have to care. Whether you like it or not. Ethically, culturally, I like companies that believe in what they say. And not just doing it because it's the thing that you have to do. But let's face it. If you have no DEI and it's the thing, and now people are erasing it. So let's not go down that rabbit hole. But yeah. So it's things like that can change. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the political winds cause so many opportunities.
That's a faster, better way to say it, right?
But you're right. DEI policies and the need for them and the execution of them could be an entire podcast. Maybe we should do.
We should do one. We could talk. I'm sure between us, we have all kinds of stories too. And it's a tough one because I think people need to pay attention to it right now more than ever. But yeah, for another day.
We'll have to get you back on. But for now, I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been I always enjoy talking to you. I think you know that.
Me too.
No, thank you. Before we let you go, do you have any parting words of wisdom for the other entrepreneurs that are out there listening or watching this podcast?
No, I guess really just, when it comes to human resources or employment law, ask your friends, do your research. But if it's something that's getting, it's getting close to a line of legal ramifications, just spend the hour and call an attorney or call an HR professional or do something, because that's what we see. We get calls from people after they've done that. Not every client, obviously, but it happens enough. And, what you see online isn't always right, or even the full picture, or you don't know how to administer it properly. And believe me, that's a thing. It's not just all black and white. Most of it isn't. So I guess that's advice if you're asking for that.
Very, very helpful. Tina, if I wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way to reach you?
Really just either our website, myhrpartner.com, or I'm Tina at myhrpartner.com. I welcome anybody to contact me.
Terrific. Well, thank you again. This has really been an awesome conversation. I appreciate it. She's Tina Hamilton. My name is Bernard Williams, and this has been How's I Supposed to Live It? Thanks, everyone.